Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, if we look at the temperatures here, you can see the main story as we head into the weekend, and it's a big cold front stretching all the way from the Canadian Prairie through the upper Midwest, down through the Central Plains, and into the Southern Plains, all the way down to the panhandle of Texas, where we've got some much colder air trying to make its way in from the northwest, but it's going to struggle to make its way across the eastern Corn Belt, and we'll take a look at that here as we get into this video. Looking at the satellite picture, we've got plenty of cloudiness associated with that front making its way through the Corn Belt. So sunny day, going to be tough to find across the Corn Belt. You can find some patches of sun across parts of the eastern Corn Belt today. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio will certainly see some of that cloudiness or some of that sunshine, and then some sunshine probably sneaking in on the backside of this front across parts of the Dakotas. But through the central U.S., going to be dealing with a very cloudy day and even some thunderstorms associated with that across parts of the Southern Plains. Even across portions of northeastern Kansas, some thunderstorms embedded within that. We'll take a look at the radar. What you see showing up across parts of Illinois and Indiana actually not making its way down to the ground. Perhaps, across far southern Illinois seeing some of those rain showers, but across east central Illinois, our office here in Champaign, Illinois, we are seeing a dry morning because we've got some dry air in the lower levels of the atmosphere still. So some of that light precipitation being detected by the radar is really only happening aloft. As we take a look at the hazards map from the National Weather Service, winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings still in effect across portions of the upper Midwest, down through the Central Plains, all the way into portions of central Kansas. Those will mostly be expiring as we head through the later part of the day as the system kind of pulls away and the impacts begin to wane. We'll take a look at that with the high-resolution NAM model. Real quick, we'll take it back to Friday morning, what we're looking at as we get the day started today. Again, much of that snow beginning to pull away from the region. We're still seeing some light snow across eastern portions of North Dakota, getting into northwestern Minnesota today, but that'll begin to taper off as we head into the early part of the afternoon. Otherwise, from portions of eastern Minnesota down into western and southwestern Wisconsin, really across this corridor here, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, getting into Oklahoma, and we're talking about western Illinois here, dealing with some cold rain, maybe mixing in with some sleet at times on the backside there. But overall, really just a messy, cold precipitation here associated with this front. As we get into the overnight hours, this will be midnight on Saturday. This precipitation, the front stretching from the UP of Michigan through Wisconsin, along the Illinois-Iowa border down into portions of the Ozarks, but really beginning to taper off in intensity as you get off to the south. We'll take it into Saturday morning as we wake up on Saturday morning, portions of eastern Wisconsin. Now we're getting that precipitation sweeping across Illinois, down into southeastern Missouri, and now we're going into midday Saturday, taking it into Saturday evening, and really watching this thing begin to weaken as it pulls off to the east. So across the eastern Corn Belt, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, really just looking for some spotty showers as we head through the day on Saturday into Saturday night. By the time we get to Sunday morning, this thing's really beginning to pull away, maybe a few spotty showers across the Ohio River Valley. But by and large, high pressure moving in on the backside. It's going to be a quiet end to the weekend for many across the Corn Belt. So something kind of happens here with the cold front here. We begin to see it wane and then actually dissipate. The opposite of frontolysis here occurring across the Corn Belt. And the way that we do that is warming the region behind the Corn Belt. And that's exactly what we're going to do as we head into the deeper part of the weekend. So Friday, we head through the day today. That cold front absolutely slicing across the Corn Belt, making its way to the Mississippi River here by 5 p.m. on Friday, crossing into portions of Wisconsin, Illinois, getting into southeastern Missouri. And now let's take it into the overnight. The front still moving on, clearing central Illinois as we get into the overnight, early Saturday morning. This is when we're going to start to warm this region. Watch what happens on Saturday afternoon. We really start to bring in high pressure, clear skies now across that region. We're starting to warm things back up, and then even more so as we head into the day on Sunday now. We'll start to warm up that region behind the cold front. And so the front really washed out by the time we get to Sunday. So as menacing as it looks at the beginning of the loop, this bitterly cold air or unseasonably cold air, it simply doesn't make its way all the way across the eastern Corn Belt. We'll see northwesterly winds continuing to be blustery at times across portions of the central and northern plains, but we'll start to see those turn back out of the south by the time we get into Sunday, again returning warm air to the region. So total precipitation from the NAM model, we'll take it all the way into midday on Saturday. Again, you really see the precipitation begin to become much lighter in intensity as we get into portions of the eastern Corn Belt. I'm talking about Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Getting into Michigan, seeing some light precipitation, spotty amounts here, perhaps getting as high as 3, 4, 5/10 of an inch, but really probably going to be seeing most areas picking up a trace to a few hundredths of an inch of precipitation, again, in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, into Michigan. Over the next 24 hours across portions of Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, that's where we could see maybe a half an inch to an inch of precipitation. So we'll continue on looking at the upper level pattern. Then as we get beyond the weekend, we're going to see this area of high pressure across the Hudson Bay, across the Northwest Territories here, kind of dominating things and forcing a northwest to southeast storm track across the prairie into the Great Lakes and the eastern Corn Belt. So I'll go ahead and just kind of animate this into the next week here. The next player that we're going to be watching then is this cutoff low as we get into the end of the week. So as we get beyond this weekend, we have some opportunities for some showers and storms across the eastern Corn Belt and the Great Lakes here on Monday and Tuesday. And then we'll have to watch this cutoff low and when it wants to be ejected across the Corn Belt, or at least across the southern U.S. as we get into the end of the week. We'll take a look at the 300 millibar jet stream winds, and that'll kind of tell the story as well. Again, it doesn't seem all that intense when you look at the flow, but here's our area of high pressure. Let me redraw that a little better, just kind of spinning away in this area, and that's going to deflect a wave to the south here as we get into Monday and Tuesday. There you see it kind of cutting across the Corn Belt right there. It's this trough that's going to bring the chance for some showers and storms to the eastern Corn Belt, parts of the Great Lakes as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and perhaps into Wednesday. Then we start watching this guy, this big cutoff low sitting across the desert southwest as we get into Friday. A very strong subtropical jet stream. When does it pick it up and kind of eject it across at least the southern U.S., perhaps into the Ohio River Valley? Right now, the European model has it get picked up as we get into Saturday and Sunday. So details very unclear at that point, and how this actually evolves is simply just not going to be handled exactly correctly by these models at 7 days out. So kind of letting you know that's the next big player that we would be watching for more significant precipitation across potentially the southern plains, getting into the Ozarks, the Mid-South, the Ohio River Valley, where we've been extremely saturated over the last several weeks. So just recapping once again, here's our first wave makes its way through Friday and Saturday with that front kind of weakening. This is the trough that's associated with that. You notice it's not progressing or lifting across the region. It's kind of being pulled northward, and that's why we see the impacts beginning to wane here across the eastern Corn Belt. We then watch this area of high pressure beginning to force the storm track south. Here comes our wave that's going to bring that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday chance for precipitation across this region. And then we begin to watch this cutoff low. When does it get picked up by the subtropical jet stream and get swung into the southern U.S., into the eastern Corn Belt, potentially as we get into next weekend? So we can see all of this with the precipitation forecast then from the European model, watching first this front making its way from west to east across the Corn Belt here Friday and Saturday, beginning to weaken as it moves off to the east as we get into Saturday night and Sunday. High pressure on the backside going to keep us quiet on Sunday into Monday, but we do kind of resume at least a slightly unsettled pattern again as that wave begins to dip in from the northwest. That's going to bring in the chance for showers and storms across portions of the eastern Corn Belt, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, getting into Indiana and Ohio as early as Monday. We could see some thunderstorms across this region. Let me go ahead and change the color. So Monday, perhaps seeing some storms along the warm front here as early as Monday, and then a better chance for some thunderstorms perhaps here getting into Tuesday night across really the same corridors. This area of low pressure that you see right here on a Tuesday morning quickly makes its way from northwest to southeast across the Corn Belt, the eastern Corn Belt, as we get through the day on Tuesday. So not a real classic, severe weather outbreak look, but I would watch this region for the potential for some strong to severe storms on Tuesday, and that's going to be parts of Iowa, getting into Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. And we'll have to talk about that more as we get into our Monday and Tuesday morning forecast, but that would be the system that I would be watching for some classic spring thunderstorms across portions of the Corn Belt. So that's Monday and Tuesday. Perhaps on the north side, seeing a little light snow well off to the north across possibly the UP of Michigan into northern Michigan. Quiet on the backside because now we begin to wait on the cutoff low. And this is, again, the mystery. When does the subtropical jet stream sweeping across this region pick up this cutoff low and then bring its precipitation across the Corn Belt? And again, we're talking about southern portions of the Corn Belt, central and southern at the very least. So perhaps Friday, Saturday into Sunday, seeing some significant precipitation making its way across some of these regions. But again, we're going to leave the details for this one until next week. Just letting you know, it is out there. We're not transitioning to some, extremely dry pattern across this region, even though we will get, 4 or 5 days of, relatively drier weather here as we head into the end of the weekend and early next week. What happens with temperatures? Well, again, we're seeing this big cold front making its way through. This would be an ominous look in most cases, but again, we know what happens here. This front really begins to wash out as we get into Saturday and Sunday, and so you see those cooler anomalies erased by the time we get to Monday and Tuesday of next week. In fact, we're going to be seeing a big time warm-up as we head into the middle part of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, featuring some very warm temperatures across this region. Now, we do see the idea here being proposed by the European model that as this cutoff low across the southwest begins to sweep in, it will try and tug some cooler air in across portions of the Corn Belt as we get into April 12th, 13th, and 14th. But, we've covered in depth that the details really are quite unclear. They're changing with each model run as we look out into the 10-day time frame. So, again, kind of just planting this as a potential seed in your head, but understanding that by the time we get to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we could have slightly different ideas. The main point is that it's going to be a very warm week across much of the Corn Belt over the next 5 to 7 days. What happens beyond day 7, a bit unclear. So let's quickly flip through the high temperatures then for the next few days just to wrap this thing up. Again, some cooler air trying to make its way in where we've got fresh snowpack and, again, access to some of that cooler air across the north. High temperatures only in the 20s across the northern plains, the upper Midwest as we go through the day today. That warm air still being drawn northward in advance of that one. Highs in the 60s and near 70 across parts of Illinois and Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee for the day today. Saturday, we see that cooler air still trying to make its way into the eastern Corn Belt. They're going to be definitely cooler across Illinois, about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than it will be today. Tomorrow, in the mid-50s across Illinois, cooler still in Indiana and Ohio. But again, you see the front really beginning to wash out. Our temperatures on Sunday certainly cooler, but by the time we get to Monday and Tuesday, again seeing that significant warm-up with 80s into parts of Kansas, Missouri, maybe southern Iowa, and then certainly mid-70s spreading into the eastern Corn Belt with 60s even lifting into the Great Lakes. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again on Monday morning.